What's happening, people? Happy bet and breakfast to you on a Sunday. It is April 24th. We got a full slate of NBA playoff basketball on the docket today, so no person better to join me on the pod than our NBA guru, the man who has been crushing his playoff bets all throughout the course of the postseason so far. It is the only Peter Dewey. What's up, Peter?
What's going on, Ben? How we doing?
I'm well. I had a fun day yesterday. I took another trip around the sun. I'm now 34 years old. And I got to tell you, like, this is a moment in my life where, like, I still feel like I got 1 year left to hang on to my early 30s, and then 35, you start getting closer to 40 than you are to 30. I don't know if this is what it's like when you're in your NBA career and you just start to feel like the end is near. I got 1 more year left of like Ben prime years. You know what I mean? So if you got any ideas of like what I should do to make sure that I capitalize on it, take advantage. Like I played golf yesterday. I had some time out there on the course. Like it was a good day. Good day. Ate some barbecue. So I enjoy it. How did you do on your slate? How did you enjoy the overall games from yesterday as well?
Yeah, well, first off, happy birthday. I mean, that has to be
Thank
said.
you.
That's the first thing. Second thing, yeah, this weekend was a little bit tougher. I started off really hot. And my NBA bets was 1-3 yesterday. Had a couple player props fall a couple points short, which was tough. But yes, these games have been interesting on the road. We've seen so many short spreads, I think, for some of the favorites, and
Yeah.
it's made it a little bit tougher because like I mean, especially in the Phoenix game today, kind of looking at like I feel like they're the better team. They're 2 point favorites on the road, but like Pelicans kept it close last game. So like I'm very that has thrown me off a bit. I'm not gonna lie. These short spreads on between these teams because I've been looking at it as like you get the huge 10.5 points we saw when those teams were at home, and it's like you can kind of make an argument either way, and then you see 2 points. Like, how are the Suns only laying 2 points? But it's just playoff basketball is different, man. We've gotten some really good games though. I'm excited for what we got coming today.
Yeah, we got a fun show. I have an opportunity to dive into 4 games on the docket today. We'll also go over the early portion of our conversation today. Some teams that might still have a chance. Right now, Toronto's down 3-1 to the 76ers. Maybe we're looking them, especially if Embiid is as hurt as he's being led on to be. If Toronto all of a sudden starts to make a run. Brooklyn down 3-0 the Boston Celtics. I know it's been some rough sledding for our guy Reed Wallach, a diehard Brooklyn Nets fan. Denver, I think we could probably agree that they're likely to. So we'll dive into some of these teams that may have an opportunity for a comeback, perhaps an opportunity if you're betting on the series at WinBet or wherever else you might be looking at your sports book if it's not available in your state. Some chances to go in there. And also we got a great Sunday slate in Major League Baseball. Peter and I have some picks already on the board. You can find those over at fansided.com/betsided. And also a quick reminder, this is something that I'm very excited about as we kick things off on Monday. We're going to have a brand new daily show here on YouTube, on streaming, at BetSided on Twitter. It's the Daily Bet Slip. It's going to be Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. East Coast time. First one kicks off tomorrow. And you already got a great NBA slate, Peter. NHL playoffs are going to be right around the corner. So Ian's going to be diving into that. We know that for sure. May and June are starting to sort of feel like very underrated betting sports months. So it's a great opportunity, I think, for us to not only get into the real thick of things in the NBA playoffs and also with baseball season basically being right around a month or so in, there's a lot of good sports to bet on right now.
Yeah, this is like the best time of the year, man. We got NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, MLB starting up. It's fun to have like that. I love like the start of one season and the end of another. I think because like you're like, oh, they get the new stuff to dive into baseball right now, which is not gonna lie. The start of the year for baseball has been kind of tough for me, just because like you have nothing to base some of this stuff off other than like last year.
Very small sample.
Yeah, so it's not the easiest thing in the world. But it's been fun for me because like basketball, like that's my thing. So like going like getting to this point in the season, like this is what everything, all the handicapping you do the entire year, like it leads up to this, and you're like, okay, now I'm like in my sweet spot. But then it's fun, like you get to dive into a new thing for baseball. So I think it's a better, just like this time of year is really cool, even though like people kind of consider the summer the slow months in sports. Like it's a fun time, and then you get football coming up in the fall. Don't want to rush it, but like this is a great time of the year, you know.
Yeah, and you mentioned football too. We're going to have a ton of NFL draft betting coverage over
Hmm.
the course of the week as well. We'll kick things off a little bit later on today. Go through it, especially on the Daily Sip. We'll have daily NFL draft segments over the course of the week as well. So this is where you want to be if you're hanging out with us maybe for the first time and starting to try and figure out, well, what exactly is this? Bed and breakfast on the weekends every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. East Coast time, and then the daily bet slip Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. East Coast time. It's a good opportunity for us to hang out and just be able to go through some of your favorite bets as well. We're actually going to be doing a daily show bet, a community bet every day. So your picks are going to come in. We got a little community pot and pool that we're going to be diving into as well. So make sure you guys come out and hang with us for that as well. So let's dive into the NBA, Peter, because I feel like I know this is your sweet spot. I know that this is an area of expertise for you. It's certainly been a lot of fun to watch, at least for one day as a Bulls fan over the course of the NBA playoffs. That game 2 was something special. And then game 3 just took a nice little dagger right to the heart. No Chris Middleton, you find a way to lose by 30 at home in game 3. But we'll get to Bulls and Bucks in just a second. All these different matchups are fascinating. So really quickly, let's just go through where everything is, and then let's start to talk about the teams that might have a chance to come back. In the Eastern Conference, you have Miami and Atlanta. That game goes down today in game 4. Miami leads that series 2-1. Game 4 went to the Toronto Raptors, but they are still down 3-1 in their series to Philadelphia. Also in the East, the Bulls are down 2-1 to Milwaukee, although game 4 is this afternoon. And then Boston and Brooklyn, as you saw last night, Boston taking a commanding 3-0 series lead. Over in the West, you have Phoenix and the Pelicans. The Suns lead that series 2-1. Phoenix got a nice bounce back win in game 3 on the road. A series that I think is a bit surprising is now tied at 2 games apiece between Dallas and Utah. The Jazz got a much needed win in game 4 by 1 point over Dallas. Mavericks had a big second half comeback once again against the Jazz. But for the first time, Peter, we actually saw the Jazz finally finish a game, especially after blowing another comeback. So I'm curious to get your take on that series. Golden State likely to put away Denver today, assuming that the Nuggets do not get swept. That's another afternoon game on Sunday. And then Memphis and Minnesota, another wild series with that series tied at 2 games apiece. So looking through all 8 of these matchups, if we're zoning in on a team that's likely to come back, and we can include games that took place yesterday of having to get the series back to even, is there a team that if you're looking at potential series prices or futures down the road that you find some value on, that maybe an underdog in this series at this point can work their way out of whatever situation that they're in and possibly make a run here in this first round?
Yeah, I think there's a couple interesting ones. The first one I just wanted to touch on was like Dallas was the underdog coming into that series because of the Luka Doncic injury. I mean, they blew yesterday's game. They probably should have won that game. Jason Kidd's play call to end that game to not advance the ball and then to basically just settle for a 3-pointer. I didn't really understand that at all, especially because you have Luka Doncic. So let him get to the rim, see if you can draw a foul. Didn't love that, but I think they have a legit chance to win that series. I think Utah, just like you said, they've had so many times where they've just blown games. Like we've seen it time and time again. They blow games. So I think Dallas having home court in these last 3 is a good spot for them to kind of pull this series off. If you got them before the series as an underdog. But I think, as you said, the ones that right now who's an underdog, I'm intrigued by the Atlanta Hawks. I don't think they can pull up the upset, but I'm intrigued by it because of the Kyle Lowry injury. I think that changes a lot for Miami on both ends of the ball. Like he's a great defender, obviously captain of their offense. So it's going to be more Jimmy Butler with the ball in his hands, which I don't mind at all. I think Jimmy's played fantastic this series, but I think that it opened the door for Atlanta. Winning game 3 was obviously huge. They had to have that game, but Atlanta hung around a little bit in game 2 as well. So like this isn't like they were completely out of this thing coming into game 3. I think them getting game 3 and Lowry being hurt, if they can win this game, we've seen what the Hawks did last year where, nobody really expected them to make this crazy run. They go to the Eastern Conference Finals. So they have a team there. It comes down to health, Ben. I think that's something we've talked about. Like,
No
you look
doubt.
at some of the teams that are banged up. The Bucks are banged up. The Suns are banged up. Like, Now the Heat are banged up. So I think anybody who's got an injury against them is got a they are facing an uphill battle, even though they're one of the top teams.
You mentioned the Lowry injury. Is that an injury that we probably need to be discussing more? We've talked a lot about the impact of Devin Booker likely missing this series. Chris Middleton certainly almost guaranteed to be out for this series, perhaps even the next series in the second round. Who knows how long the NBA playoffs would likely last for Milwaukee. Even if they get to the Eastern Conference Finals without Middleton, we're talking about a 3 to 4 week injury timeline. Is the Lowry injury one that we probably need to be paying more attention to and having further discussions on?
I think if he doesn't play today, yeah, they're listing him as questionable. It's been weird because he has a hamstring injury, and like he made it sound like he was going to play in this game, and they list him as questionable. So I think it depends on like really how severe the injury is, if that makes sense. Like
No doubt. And right
if
now over at Win, you can still get Atlanta to win the series at plus 550. Obviously, that number is going to change drastically
mhm,
in both directions depending on what happens in game 4 with Miami up 2-1. Heat still at minus 825, so obviously no real value there. When it comes to sort of these different opportunities, I'll talk about a couple of the other ones where you actually have some pretty even action on both sides. Dallas, now the favorite still in that series, getting Luka Doncic back. Remember, they opened as the substantial underdogs in that series. So you can still, if you're still buying in on Dallas moving on to the next round, minus 140 against the Jazz, I still think is a favorable situation for you. The Timberwolves, big win the other day. They're plus 240 against Memphis. Memphis minus 300 for the series. And that's really kind of where the value ultimately ends. If you think Brooklyn, for whatever reason, has a chance
yes,
to come back from 3-0, they're at 15-1 in that series. Chicago plus 750. They're only down 2-1 in the series with game 4 coming up in Chicago. If they make it a game and they split the series without Middleton, I don't know if I'm necessarily betting it, Peter, because none of us had a lot of confidence in Chicago going into the series. And game 3 was a complete and total stinker, but
mhm,
DeRozan's more than capable of getting his shot in the mid-range. Vucevic needs to make some more shots from the outside. And you kind of need Zach LaVine to take over a game.
yeah.
Maybe this is the game to do it on Sunday in Chicago, especially without Middleton having to switch on him. Do you like the Bulls maybe as that super, super dark horse team to possibly, knowing that Middleton's not going to play, possibly make a run as an underdog?
Yeah, I really thought the Bulls were going to take one of these two games, so I wouldn't be surprised if they take this game in Chicago. I just think like the atmosphere it was good in Game 3, and then they just got killed. Like it's just
Yeah.
so I'm not
Could make it
overreacting to that. Yeah, I you can't overreact to Game 3. So like it's just like I said, the teams with the injuries, like you are short, especially to big name players. You're shortening the rotation so quickly. Like you go from Chris Middleton to like now we have to play Wesley Matthews like a good amount of minutes now to make sure that we have these minutes. So I think the Bulls have a shot. I don't know if I could bet against Giannis in this spot. The thing that I've just been looking at this whole series, they have nobody to match up on Giannis, and that it's just made it really really tough. And like we saw DeMar, bad game 1, they lose. Great game 2, they win. Horrible game 3, they lose. So it's like if he doesn't play, at his top level, I don't know if the Bulls can pull off the upset, but who knows? If he strings together 2-3 good games, like maybe game 7, anything can happen. So I wouldn't bet the Bulls just because I think Milwaukee just has enough to beat them. But at the same time, like they win today, this might be if you think they win today, you might want to take them now because the price is going to get so much shorter after today's game.
Yeah. And I think if you're looking at a team purely from a value perspective, knowing what Middleton means to that team,
Yeah.
I was listening to I grew up as a Chicago fan. I was listening to a sports talk interview in Chicago, and one of their beat writers was talking about how Middleton is the guy. It's not Giannis. It's not Drew Holiday. Middleton is the guy that kind of hones everybody in. And even
Mm,
though he had stunk the first 2 games of the series, like just could not find his shot, got into a little bit of a rhythm in game 2. He's sort of that coach on the floor, settles everybody down. Like he got into Bobby Portis's face to told him to just
mhm.
calm down. Even when Giannis tends to play a little bit more emotional and he starts, getting some offensive fouls and charges in the lane, he settles everybody back down. Not having him on the court is substantial, even when he's not making a lot of shots. And that was the case, the first 2 games of the series. So I don't mind Chicago just as a sprinkle at plus 750. I think the matchup that still intrigues me. Um, is Memphis and Minnesota.
Yeah.
Because I think game 4 was crucial to the Timberwolves, because in every game this series, they've had brilliant moments, right? Like, they've had some terrible moments, but in every game of this series,
Mhm.
Peter, like, there was no point where you thought to yourself, like, there's zero chance of them winning this game. It was just letdowns. And I think it's happened to them enough where maybe they start to realize we cannot take our foot off the pedal. We know that Memphis is capable of coming back in this series and playing us really well and then stealing wins directly out of our hands. Maybe there's an opportunity, especially with a 1-point win the other day, for Minnesota now going back to Memphis for a crucial game 5, knowing that they already stole one on the road before,
Yeah.
to maybe think to themselves, we're in this series and you can still get them at plus 240. Do you give the Timberwolves any shots of advancing? I know that they've had some soft moments, and you cannot blow 2 20-point leads
Yeah.
in a game. It just can't happen. They're fortunate enough right now to be in a point where the series is split, but
Mhm.
they've also had those moments where they've been in charge and played and looked like the much better team. Maybe there's some value here.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Obviously this series is 2-2 because these teams are pretty evenly matched. It's just the thing that concerns me with Minnesota, and it's two things. One, Karl Anthony Towns is so in his head right now. It's unbelievable. Some of his quotes after game 3 about like not wanting to crash the glass so he doesn't pick up fouls, like he's not going out there and just playing basketball, which it sounds like a stupid thing. Like that's what you need your best player to do. Like you cannot have him overthinking every single little thing he's doing on the floor. And it's why he only took 4 shots in that game and why they lost that game. Like they need him to be assertive on the offensive end, because when he's playing well, that's when things open up for D'Angelo Russell. That's when things open up for Anthony Edwards. And Memphis has dug a hole for themselves like in almost every game, which has been really weird because it felt like in the regular season they were so dominant at times. And
Yeah.
it's just like they haven't been able to find that. And part of that for them has been foul trouble too. They've had stupid fouls. I mean, both the games they lost, Jaren Jackson Jr. picked up 3 fouls in the first half. And it's like it is hard to win when your best players are on the bench. Obviously. So for me, I think there's some value on Minnesota. I think Memphis is the better team just because like even the games Minnesota's won, it's been like, should they have even won that? Like last night, like should they have even won that
Yeah.
game? So that's where I guess like I would lean towards Memphis, but my other thing is Chris Finch has to be better. That game 3 should not have gotten away from them. He didn't call a timeout in the second
Yeah.
half. They
Got to do
lost.
something.
Yeah, he was like, and then his quote after the game, he's saying, we used a bunch early. We didn't want to burn them. I mean, this was the time to burn them, Chris. Like you were gonna lose. You lost the game because you refused to call a timeout. And it's just that it comes down to like, can you make adjustments? Can you make adjustments? And I give Taylor Jenkins credit. He realized immediately Steven Adams was going to get played off the floor, and so he hasn't gone to him, and he's gone to
You got
Xavier
a lot of
Tillman.
Brandon Clark this series, and
Yeah,
you make the adjustment. You know that Adams is a veteran, and you want veterans in that spot. But when the matchup is right, you go with the guy that's going to be the better fit on the court, and he's done that.
exactly. And so that I think is that edge too. I kind of like it. Chris Finch, I mean, he's gotten away with some really questionable decisions. He basically let Cat foul out in the play-in because he didn't want to take him out of the game. Like his coaching, it's been like high risk, high reward, and the reward has been very low so far in these playoffs. He's gotten bailed out by the fact that other guys have stepped up. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, John Morant's got to be a little bit better. He's been very inefficient in the playoffs, but this series, like this one is, I think 100% going 7. I don't think there's any
I'm
way
with
we
you.
see somebody win 2 straight. It's
Yeah.
just not.
All right,
Not
and that's why I feel like there might, because I don't know if I'm necessarily rooting for Memphis because like there's stars on both sides and
Mhm.
both teams play a very entertaining style of basketball. I think it's dependent on where your futures lie. Like for you, who's got a future on both the Suns and the Golden State Warriors, you're like, okay, I'd probably much rather have the Minnesota Timberwolves moving on. I think I want to see Morant make a run in this postseason, and to me, like they're the more physical team, they're the tougher minded team, and that will come into play, especially when it goes to a game 7. So if you wanted to, I suppose the way that you could go through this matchup is you take Minnesota now at plus 240 to win the series, expecting it to go to a 7th game, and then you just hedge on the other side and get yourself a guaranteed win with the Memphis Grizzlies. So plus 240 now. Maybe there's an opportunity to hedge on the other side. Let's dive into today's slate. We got 4 great games, starting with the Bulls and the Milwaukee Bucks. A little bit later on, it is Golden State at Denver. Evening game, Miami and Atlanta. Again, Kyle Lowry questionable, but you and I both do not expect him to play. And then the Suns and the Pelicans in game 4 to close things out. So let's talk about the Bucks and the Bulls. Right now, the Milwaukee's a 4.5-point favorite over at WynnBET Sportsbook. Total in that game at 219. If you want to jump on the Bulls on the money line, they are at plus 150. I do expect this game to be closer, and if I had to take a side, I do think I would probably lean towards Chicago at plus 4.5. The problem is that with these numbers, even if Chicago keeps it close all game long, a few more free throws here and there, and the Bucks have actually been a halfway decent free throw shooting team other than Giannis, and he can get into some of those spells. But like, this feels like it's going to be one of those like 109, 104 games where a few free throws here and there, and then a missed shot from Chicago is going to seal the deal. But I do expect Chicago to play much better. And I think a big key for them today is not necessarily Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan or Nikola Vucevic. I think Patrick Williams has to have a monster game today. Like, that's a dude that needs to be all over the place, locked down on Giannis. Him and Alex Caruso, if they can get both of those guys going, those role players, I think it's going to make their lives for everybody else on the floor much easier. So if I had to make a play on this game, I don't mind Chicago at plus 4.5.
Yeah, I don't hate it either. I'm glad you're not overreacting to game 3, because I don't think we can overreact to game 3. It's just I think
it was crap. Like, I'd like to throw it as far away as possible. Yeah. I don't want to think about it ever again.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think you can really take anything from that game and be like, this is how we got to look at this series going forward. As for a side in this game, I really don't have one. I'm going to save my best bet for later because it's my best bet of the day. I took a player prop in this one. I don't love laying the points with Milwaukee without Middleton because, like you said, like, I mean, we saw like game 2 to me is like more of how I thought the series was going to be played, like a little bit of back and forth, and then someone pulls away, kind of. And like, we haven't really seen that. Like, it's been either like it was the Bucks up huge, Bulls come back, Bucks win, and then kind of.
Oh, I think we might have lost Peter on this one, so we'll keep this going for now. So again, if they're looking for an opportunity to dive in, certainly on the chat, now would be an extremely valuable time. As Peter's connection just got lost for a second. I'll be curious to learn who his best bet is going to be, especially from the player prop side. But I mentioned Patrick Williams. Like, that is somebody that really needs to start to string some more games together as Peter is back with us, and then he's lost again. But I think that's somebody, especially from a matchup standpoint, you got to get him going. He's somebody that is still trying to, figure things out, missed a lot of time this year. Talking about Patrick Williams, Peter, is somebody that I think really needs to get going for Chicago. But do we have you back?
Yeah, I think so. Good.
Okay, so I know that you don't necessarily have a side on this game, but yeah, like I said, I think Williams probably needs to be the guy to get things going. And I still have a little bit of concerns that I thought Caruso got used so much in game 2 that by the time game 3 rolled around, like, they kind of knew what to expect, and like, he has to play a ton of minutes for them to have a lot of success. And I just don't know if his body's going to hold up the rest of the year to be able to do so.
Yeah, it's tough, especially when they're using him to guard Giannis. Like, that's really.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Did we lose you, Peter? Now I think we got you back. You're in, you're out.
I don't know what's going on. I was fine. I don't know what's going on here.
All right. All right. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think Caruso is a tough assignment. Him drawing Giannis, just like size-wise, it's not a great matchup for him. And then obviously you have to play him a ton of minutes because you don't have, no Lonzo Ball. They don't have as many options defensively to guard some of these guys. So, I think Patrick Williams, just on both ends of the ball, you're right. He's got to be big defensively against Bobby Portis. Probably is going to be some part of his matchup as well. And then offensively, they need other guys to make shots. They can't rely purely on DeMar and LaVine to get everything going for them. So, Yeah, I agree with you. I think Patrick Williams, Caruso, those guys have to step up. You need your role players to step up in the playoffs if you're going to ever win. So I like both of those calls.
All right, so we'll side right now, and more of a lean. Probably not going to bet it today, but the Bulls can keep this thing close. I would actually say if you're looking to go on the Milwaukee side, I would probably consider it as a live bet today, and maybe you can get them at maybe +1.5, +2.5. If Chicago ends up making a run to start things off, third quarter has actually been halfway decent for Chicago in the first two games of the series. Same with the beginning of the fourth quarter up until game three. So Milwaukee's defense is going to come to play. It's probably another underplay at 219 if you're looking on the total. But I do think Chicago can keep it close. And if you're looking on the Milwaukee side, maybe you consider a live bet there. Next game on the slate, you have Denver trying to get one win against Golden State, who look about as locked in as they possibly can be. Golden State in this series, Peter, has just been superb. Like, from a defensive side of the ball, they've limited Denver to only 108.7 points per game. Golden State, coincidentally, is averaging over 122. Just from that side, if you're Denver, and Nikola Jokic can only do so much. He's averaging 29.3 points, 13 boards, 5 assists in the series. MVP of the league. We've already seen one sportsbook already pay out for Nikola Jokic as the MVP, even though it hasn't been officially announced. What would need to happen for Denver to cover the 4.5 today, cover the +155 money line? Would it be just giving Jordan Poole the worst game of his playoff career this year? Like, who do they have to slow down in the process?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to do multiple things. They're going to have to slow down Clay, Poole, Curry for sure. But the bigger thing is they need guys to step up on offense. Aaron Gordon's been horrible in this series. I know he had a good game 3, but the first 2 games he did nothing. And so Jokic can play as good as you want. The Warriors have kind of made it their strategy this series. We're going to play Jokic one-on-one, and we're going to dare somebody else to beat us. And the Nuggets have not been able to do that the entire series. And like, Will Barton's had a few good games, but he hasn't shot extremely efficiently. Yeah. They need Monty Morris to maybe have a good game tonight. It's really going to come down to can the Nuggets get somebody to have a game where you're like, okay, Jokic had like a 1B in this game. It's probably not going to happen, which is why I would take the Warriors here. But that's what I think it comes down to is they need somebody, a role player, someone has to step up and do more than just score 10 points. Like they need somebody to have a good game. You can do as much as you want defensively against the Warriors. They're probably going to get theirs. But it just can't be Jokic has to get 30, 15, and 15 for them to have a prayer. Like they need somebody to step up.
Yeah. And granted, they played substantially better in game 3 than we saw in the first 2 games of the series. And that was expected. And Denver's still a place with a very solid home court advantage. But I mean, we know what it's been for teams that are down 3-0 in a series. And we know the limitations that Denver's roster has when Jokic is off the court. They're among the worst teams in the league from an on-off perspective. I'd like for it to be intriguing. Like I expect another close game. I think Denver will fight. I just don't know if it's enough. And if you can't stop Poole, you still have to deal with Curry. You still have to deal with Klay Thompson. Which Thompson, by the way, like if you're looking for an opportunity for a bounce back, maybe consider his rebounding or assist props. He's basically done none of that in the first couple games of the series. I think from his role as a distributor needs to grow a little bit, especially moving forward. And I think the Warriors recognize that as well. So maybe that's another sort of opportunity there. But we both it sounds like Golden State at -4.5 in this one.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to bet it yet. I took a prop so far on this game, but I definitely would lean to that side.
Okay. Is that the prop for best bets? Are you saving that one?
No. I took Jordan Poole over 30.5 points, rebounds, and assists in this game. Scored 30, 29, 27 the first 3 games. Had 34, 42, 33 in terms of points, rebounds, assists first 3 games. He's just going to have the ball in his hands a ton. Like that's really what it comes down to. And he's taking 7 free throws. So I think he gets you to about 20, 25 points. And then from there, 30.5. I feel like that's a low number. Like we could see him clear that on points alone. So yeah, I like it for points, rebounds, assists for sure.
His usage rate has actually been down in the first 3 games of the series, but it's still 29.2%, 27.2%, and 27.7%. So he's absolutely in play. And the fact that you can get it at over 30.5, I think that's a really sharp play on that matchup. All right, let's shift to the evening games. You have Miami, like we talked about before, possibility of no Kyle Lowry in this game as well. They're going up against Atlanta. They are up 2-1 in this series. I think when it comes to trying to figure out where Atlanta goes next, we know what Trae Young is capable of. We just have not seen it. 19 points per game, solid rebound and assist numbers, but we need the Trae Young game where nobody can guard him. And Miami, of all teams, I think is one of the best that is set up to guard Trae Young. Even without Lowry, I don't know if that's necessarily something that they're going to get away with in another loss at home against the Hawks. Right now, over at WinBet, when we're talking to look at the latest odds for this particular game, Atlanta 2-point dog at home, plus 112 on the money line. I feel very strongly that the Heat are going to play well today. And yes, Young has that ability to make you look stupid defensively, but Miami's prepared for him as well as any team in the league.
Yeah, they have so many guys that can match up on him. I would probably put Gabe Vincent on him today if Lowry's out for a good amount of time. They could throw Jimmy Butler on him. Bam Adebayo is one of the best switching big men in the league. So they've made it tough on Trae Young. And I mean, he still had a good game in game 3, but and even in game 2, he scored a lot, but he turned it over 10 times. They haven't made anything easy for him. It hasn't been easy baskets at any point.
And to his credit too, that final play of the game was the right decision.
Yeah. He's exactly. He has played well. It's just Miami's defense is it's suffocating, man. Because like the Celtics, they can almost switch 1 through 5. So it is really tough to find anything on them. I think something that we have to bring up in this game that we've talked about all year, the Hawks have not covered in a loss this year. So if you're going to bet on the Hawks today, do not bet them to cover the 2-point. Bet them to win.
It's an amazing stat that I still can't fathom every day that we go ahead and take a look at it. The fact that they are, 0-40, 0-41.
That's 0-42, something like that.
0-42 have not covered in any single loss. Remarkable.
It's crazy.
By the way, when Lowry went out, Atlanta went on a run. I think they scored. I think they outscored Miami by 14 from that point forward. If there's anything that I trust about Eric Spoelstra, it's adjustments. They're going to recognize what went wrong. And again, it's hard in the moment when you're a coach losing somebody like Lowry, but now you can game plan around it. And Atlanta has never been the type of team, even during their playoff run, their playoff run was not necessarily a ton of adjustments that were made. It was talent kind of coming out and Trae Young being incredible.
They shot like crazy too. I mean, they just made a ton of threes in every series.
So that might be one of my of all the games on the slate today. I think Miami as a 2-point road favorite is probably the direction that I'm going to want to go in. And it's the NBA playoffs. We've seen underdogs have a great game, have a great series on Saturday.
Yeah.
Utah ended up, winning outright as a favorite, but they didn't cover the spread. And the first early portion of the season of the playoffs, we saw favorites do very, very well. But I do like Miami quite a bit at -2 today. I'm actually a bit surprised that the line is not bigger. I think it's not taking away from the value of Kyle Lowry, but I think odds makers might be overvaluing his loss just a tad, knowing what Miami can do to make the switches that they need. Last game on the slate, and then we got best bet.
Real quick, if we stick with Heat, I'm taking the under in that game. It's at 221, I believe, right now. First game was 206, second game 220, third game 221. Heat play at the 28th slowest pace in the NBA, and they kind of got sped up in game 3 by Atlanta. That's why Atlanta went on that run. They started playing faster. I think Eric Spoelstra, you talk about adjustments, especially if Kyle Lowry doesn't play today. They are going to try and slow this thing down, be real deliberate on offense because they don't want to get in a track meet. That's not what benefits them. Them playing slow and just mucking it up on defense, that's what they want. They don't want the Hawks to get into the open floor. And game 2, it got to 220, but it was garbage time free throws. Atlanta was fouling down 10 with 2 minutes to go. They were just trying to extend the game. Something you see more in college than you ever see in the NBA.
Yeah.
So I really think this number is a little high for me. Even though it's in Atlanta, I think Miami really tries to slow this down and get back to what they did in games 1 and 2.
All right, last game on the slate, you have Phoenix at New Orleans. The Pelicans 2.5-point dogs at home. If I'm not mistaken, every game today has underdogs at home. Yep, you have Chicago plus 4.5, Denver plus 4.5, both the Hawks and the Pelicans at 2 and 2.5 respectively. So We're at some point one home dog is probably going to come away with the victory. I just don't know if it's going to be the case today. If I had to lean one way, I'd probably lean towards Chicago here. But total in this game down from 217.5 to 215. There's been a lot of movement towards the under. And I think that makes sense because Phoenix has not been good defensively in this series. That's been a bread and butter and staple for them over the course of the year. One of the better defensive rated teams in the NBA. And you know that needs to become a heavier priority for them, especially in game 4, knowing what's at stake and trying to get Booker some additional rest to get him to come back. It wouldn't surprise me if we start to see this series slow down a little bit. And I almost think a little slower pace series could actually help the Pelicans as well. Valanciunas has gotten a ton of rebounds, but his scoring numbers have been way down. And I think it's because the pace has been pushed a little bit. If you run the offense a little bit more through him, it's going to create a few more open shots on the perimeter. Not saying he's the end all be all for this team, but he's already going to be around the paint. You might as well force it inside and then trying to get some guys moving around the perimeter because the Pelicans have been making outside shots. Where do you stand in on this series?
Yeah, the Suns worry me. Like you mentioned earlier, I have a future on them without Devin Booker. Their offensive rating is much worse. They go from 116.8 to 109.2, I believe. It's a significant drop off. Their offense. Obviously, Chris Paul was fantastic in Game 3. Really controlled the game from a passing perspective, from a scoring perspective. He was hunting a shot late, and he got DeAndre Ayton going early, which kind of opened things up for Paul and Mikal Bridges in the second half. I think the Suns win this game. I bet them on the money line. I didn't want to deal with the points because what scared me is last game, CJ McCollum hit that 3. It went from 6 to 3. I think the Suns still cover because I think they closed at 2.5. But I saw that and I was like, maybe I should just we're getting some value on the Suns here that they're only minus 140, I believe, on the money line. I was like, I'll forget the points. I'll lay the juice for this one. So I'm taking Phoenix to win. I think they can get through this series without Devin Booker, but if they get the Mavs and Luka next round and Devin Booker can't play, I'm a little nervous. Offensively, they don't look as dominant as they were in the regular season. And like you said, their defense has slipped in the series. They really have struggled to guard Brandon Ingram, really bad. So Phoenix is if they get Devin Booker back, I feel like they're the rightful favorite just because of what they did all year. But without him, they're just not the same team. And I think people are have underreacted a little bit to this injury with him, in the futures market where the Suns are. So I think they win today, but I don't think they're a lock to go to the Western Conference Finals by any means.
I don't know if they've necessarily underreacted. The futures market is still plus 160 for them to win the Western Conference. They're still behind Golden State. You remember they entered this series minus 130.
That's true.
To win the West. We were having conversations on our best bet show over at BetSided about there's no value there, but we're all still picking them for the most part. I think Donovan was the only one of us to take the Warriors instead of the Suns, and it's starting to look like a halfway decent pick right now. But it's a fascinating series. I am with you though. That Phoenix on the money line makes a lot of sense. In fact, I don't mind them at minus 2.5. I just don't think the Pelicans can keep up. There's been more adjustments made from Phoenix. If we're going to give Eric Spoelstra and the Bucks some credit for adjustments, I still think you have to give the same type of credit to Monty Williams. They made quality adjustments. It was a closer game than maybe people may have thought in Game 3, but I don't think Phoenix ever felt like they were losing control of it. You know what I mean? I think it was always closer than maybe anyone betting the Suns felt comfortable with, but I don't think it was ever out of reach, if that makes sense. I think they had that game in the bag the entire time. So I like them to continue on and play well. I don't mind taking them at 2.5, and certainly with the movement on the under 215 feels a tad bit low, but again, Phoenix is going to crush you defensively. And if you're giving them opportunity and time to make some adjustments, especially if this game does play slower, it sets up well. Probably not a number that I like right now. I think if I had to choose a side in this game, I'm probably going Phoenix minus 2.5 as opposed to a total.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I think it's interesting too in this game with Jackson Hayes got tossed for that flagrant on Jay Crowder. So I'm intrigued to see what Willie Green does today. If he goes back to Jackson Hayes or if he tries to do something else. Willie Green deserves a ton of credit for making adjustments too. He's been
No
great in this playoffs. they're gonna need CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram to be firing because those two guys, like the game one, both of them were not great, and Phoenix handled it pretty well. But like if they're both playing well and the Suns don't have Devin Booker, like the question is where are the Suns' other points going to come from? Like Chris Paul is probably going to give you 15 plus. I'd even say you probably know DeAndre Ayton's going to give you 15 plus. He's been good in this series. But after that, like Mikal Bridges was good in game 3, but Cam Johnson was not. Jay Crowder was not. Jay Crowder didn't hit a 3 again. Like it's that is the thing that scares me with the Suns. It's like you have a bunch of guys who are really good role guys when there's a ton of attention on Devin Booker, but when you have to ask them, you need to step up and score 15. Can they consistently do that? That's the question for me. That's why I was like, forget the points. I think the Suns win, but I just don't. Their role guys have to be a little bit better, I think, especially if they're going to get past more than this series.
All right. Before we get into best bets, I do want to mention that we just got splits in from WinBet.
Okay.
So I think this will be a very helpful tool for anybody that's looking to bet on the NBA today. They just literally sent this out maybe actually less than a minute ago. So perfect timing here before we dive into best bets. Bucks and Bulls, 75.8% of the betting tickets are on Milwaukee. 84.2% of the money is on Milwaukee as well. More of the money backing the under in that game, and a ton of money line action on Milwaukee. 95.2% of the money is on Milwaukee to win straight up. In the Warriors and Nuggets matchup, a lot of action evenly split on both sides between Golden State. Just under 80% of the betting tickets are on Golden State, and a little bit more of the money is on Golden State at 82.2%. Huge handle on the over in this game against the Nuggets. Right now it's at 224.5. Just under 96% of the money is backing the over in that game. So if you want to side with the sports books, you would want to take the under in Denver versus Golden State today. For Miami and Atlanta, lopsided action in betting tickets on Miami. 87% of the tickets are in Atlanta. However, only 56.2% of the money is on Miami. So that tells you that there is some sharp money coming in on Atlanta today at +2. And then the other game worth noting, the Suns and the Pelicans. Again, more lopsided action with 87.3% of the betting tickets on the Suns to win. But a lot of sharps putting some action in on the Pelicans at +2.5. Despite almost 88% of the tickets going to Phoenix, Peter, the line has actually moved in favor of New Orleans to 2.5 in this game, +2.5. So right now, New Orleans getting right around 39% of the handle compared to 13% of the tickets. Also, that game, there's a sizable amount of money coming in on the under, which again makes sense considering that it moved from 217 down to 215. So those are some splits worth considering ahead of the games as well. Let's dive into best bets to close things out here on a Sunday. Pete, you're looking at NBA. I have a prop in Major League Baseball that I wrote about over at BetSided, but go ahead and kick things off. Who is that winner today when it comes to your best bet for Sunday, April 24th?
Yeah, I'm going back to the well. Bobby Portis over 13.5 points. I took him over 17.5 points in rebounds in game 3, and he absolutely crushed that. He finished with 18 and 16. Just a dominant game for Bobby Portis. And there's the revenge game narrative, obviously, against the Bulls, but really this comes down to opportunity for Bobby Portis. Without Chris Middleton in the lineup this year, Bobby Portis is averaging 14.7 points on 12.9 shots per game. So obviously, you take away that 15 to 20 shots Chris Middleton's getting every night. Somebody else has to take them. Bobby Portis has been one of the guys who stepped up in a big way, and he started this series coming off the bench because Brook Lopez is back in the lineup. They moved him to the starting lineup in Game 3. I think they do it again in Game 4. And Bobby Portis, starter versus bench, is a completely different player this year. As a starter, he's averaging 15.5 points per game, taking 12.5 shots per game. Off the bench, 10.4 points per game on 10.4 shots per game. So you're looking at about 2 more shots, averaging about 5 more points. The minutes are going to be there, obviously, without Middleton. They need, like, Bobby Portis is the number 3 guy when Middleton's not out. It's Giannis Drew, and then it's Bobby Portis. So I like that he's down at 13.5. The way I look at this is they have Brooke Lopez, I believe, at 15 or 14.5 right now at WinBet.
Yeah.
I think Bobby Portis gets more opportunities, and it's just he's a better all-around scorer than Brooke Lopez. So it's minus 105 at win for this prop. So I think you're getting some real value on Bobby Portis to have another good game.
Yeah, like to play quite a bit on Portis, especially coming back to Chicago. It's always an opportunity for him to rile the crowd up a little bit. For me, I'm going on a pitcher prop, Robbie Ray of the Seattle Mariners. I know that there's some concern right now that his velocity is down, is not looking like the same pitcher that we saw over the last few years, but I'm banking on him returning to form against Kansas City. His last game out in Seattle was his best start of the year. Didn't have the strikeout numbers, only had 4, but still pitched 6 strong innings, only gave up 1 run. His strikeout to walk ratio was way down compared to the first 2 games of the season. Kansas City's offense right now is just stuck in a rut. They're not making much hard contact at all. They're certainly not driving the ball, and that's always been a concern against Robbie Ray, is sometimes he leaves the ball up just a tad. But it's going to be a favorable pitching matchup for him against the second worst offense in Kansas City in the American League. And this is someone that over the course of his career has averaged a little bit more than a strikeout per inning, and it's way down this year. But he's also played some tough teams along the way as well. I like the fact that he's back home in Seattle. It's going to be a sort of an early mid-afternoon game. Shadows coming in. The Royals already don't see the ball particularly well. For somebody who hasn't hit 6 strikeouts yet, I understand that 6.5 might feel a tad bit high, and you're paying at a minus 115 rate over at WinBet, but it just sets up very well. You saw Shane Bieber as an example of a guy that wasn't hitting his velocity take it to the White Sox his last time out. These guys just need a little bit more ramp up time. And I think that's what you're seeing from Ray. So I think he's in a really nice spot today against a bad offense in Kansas City. I like Ray to go ahead and clear that number, especially if he can go 6-7 strong. I think that sets up very, very well for him for today. All right, guys, that's it. That is today's Bet and Breakfast for Sunday, April 24th. Plenty of great action in the NBA. Of course, a full slate of Major League Baseball today as well. Make sure you guys join us right back here, whether you're watching us at BetSided on Twitter or on YouTube. The daily bet slip will debut Monday at 5 p.m. Cannot wait for that. We're going to go over our favorite bets of the day. Also hang out with you. Got the community bets as well. Plenty of fun. Make sure you guys join us for that. So for our guy, Peter Dewey, make sure you check out all of his outstanding NBA work over at BetSided. I am Ben Heisler. We thank you so much for hanging out with us on Bet and Breakfast. May all of your bets hit today, and we will talk to you tomorrow for the brand new edition of Daily Bet Slip at 5 p.m. So long, everybody.